welcome to The Higher Point. We are here coming from the studio at High Point Farms with my buddy Nick here. And today we have an episode of question and answer. Some guys and ladies and gentlemen have sent in some questions for us over Instagram and Facebook, and we're going to do our best to answer these questions. No promises that we'll have perfect answers for you, though.
Yeah, there's a reason for that, and you'll understand here in a little bit when we read Ted Carter's question. You'll know.
Yep.
So, first one is, of course, Jansen. Why do y'all choose to do strongman and hurt your bodies instead of working on being healthy and looking good in the mirror? I'll let you go first.
Spoken like a true ego lifter.
You have to admit he can back up his ego lifting.
No, he can. I mean, like, Jansen can lift a lot of the same weights that me and Nick can, and
yeah.
His bench is stronger than ours. Like,
yeah, I think most of his lifts are stronger than mine, to be honest.
My biggest thing with just lifting to lift, like, I understand, like, where I'm at with that, like, mentally, like, I need to go to the gym to keep my mind sharp, to, like, gain the confidence, keep the confidence, to just, like, keep a clear mind. That's what it helps me with. But on the other hand, like, I'm competitive. I've had a competitive nature since I was young, being in sports. And after I graduated college, started working at Busy Bee, I didn't do anything competitive. Didn't even lift weights for 3 years. I got fat, got divorced, and here we are now. I mean, my first love was strongman. Or my first love was football. My second love left me. My third love
beer.
Was strongman.
No, your third love was beer.
No, well, maybe. Yeah. So it just, for me, it's the competitive nature of it, and it helps, like, when you have goals, you set goals, like, for competition and for making nationals, it makes it easier to stay disciplined and work towards those goals. That's the way I look at it.
Yeah. So it's a little different for me. Just to illustrate the point, really the only sports that I played were like summer baseball and golf. Like, I tried football 7th grade year, and I really fucking hated the conditioning and stuff. And I was just, mentally weak, and so I just decided to do
I'm glad you said it.
Newspaper. Yeah, I'm being honest. I did a newspaper route instead, and I still had to, like, have the wherewithal to, like, go home, fold all the papers, load everything up, and go do it every day. Mm-hmm. But I didn't really see the point to sports because it was, like, at least with the paper on, like, I had some money to, like, use and do things with. But so through that, I was the fat cops kid that never got invited to parties. I literally was that kid that was in my parents' basement playing video games. I mean, like, if you think the stereotypical thing, like, I ate my meals down there, like, I did all that stuff. And so strongman is the first thing that I've ever really felt like I belonged to when it came to athleticism. Because strongman started, at least my journey into strongman started when, like, Brian Shaw, Eddie Hall, and Thor were all, like, kind of the main icons
the
there.
Big guys, yeah.
And they were just, like, massive, right? Like, they had huge fat contents, but they were still incredibly strong. Well, I've always had huge fat content. I was like, well, maybe I can work on the incredibly strong portion. Plus, it's something that I've always, like, watched on TV and stuff. So for me, it's the first thing I ever felt like I belonged to anything when it came to athleticism. And Felicia really helped foster that because she's like, you're an athlete. Like, when we were very first beginning, I'm like, no, I'm not, because I very much wasn't. And she's like, no, you are. And that's what you need to think, how you need to think from here on out. So, and as far as me, like, you talk about hurting your bodies. I do things a little different. Like, I was noticing some of the people I follow on Instagram, like, they're going to, like, contests pretty much monthly, if not more. Now then my opinion, and it's just my opinion, is that's where you're hurting your body. Like, that's where you're going to start getting, like, super injury prone, stuff like that. I mean, I think Felicia does a good job of allowing us to listen to our bodies if we're like, hey, we're not going to do that, or I don't feel right about that, or giving us the flexibility of what workouts to do, or, just wanting to work on injury prevention with us and stuff like that. So I feel good. I mean, I've been doing this for going on 2 years, if not passing 2 years. Is 2 years? Or is this the third year? Anyway, for several years. And, like, I actually feel better overall than when we started. Like, I still have shoulder problems, but I had those shoulder problems prior to Strongman. Mm-hmm. So it's been a beneficial thing for me on so many fronts. And so I do take care of my body when it comes to that kind of stuff. Like, if I'm not feeling it, I just don't do it. Because I'm in for the long game. I can give a shit what I place. I mean, there are times that, like, the last Kansas Strongest, I really wanted to be on a podium. And I was, like, really focused on that. But overall, like, if I don't get it, I'm not, like, killing myself over it or whatever. So for me, it's the long game. Like, I want to be that grandpa that's in the gym deadlifting with his grandkids. Or even great-grandkids. That'd be pretty cool, too. Mm-hmm. So that's my answer to that question.
Yep. I think Jansen will see that he misses competition soon. I think, like, he's just out of football, and it's still new, like, not being in football, not having to do anything for that, not being competitive. And we all know Jansen, he's competitive. He's going to miss that. We'll get him to do Strongman with us. I'm convinced. We'll get him to do a competition.
It's only a matter of time. So God's keeping him in the area for a reason.
Yeah.
That's why he's got KDWP instead of Texas Department of Wildlife and Parks.
And he still practices all the lifts with us, even though he hasn't competed yet, I mean...
Dude, he could totally go in and, like, demolish.
Yeah. He'd get in my open class and demolish me.
Yeah, I was going to say, he would do well at it. So you want to do the next question? Because that one's pretty easy to answer.
Yeah. It is easy?
Yeah, Cade's question? that one's easy.
Okay.
So, although I would like to try it some night.
So, Cade Hover, he asks, who can drink the most beer, Nate or Nick?
Gee, I wonder. Definitely Nate.
No, I'm a lightweight, apparently. That's what people think.
According to Fatima. Yeah. I don't really drink all that often. As a matter of fact, when Nate and I went to Texas T-Bone last time, I got one Bud Light, and I was telling Nate, or maybe that was when we went to Applebee's. I can't remember. One of the places that we went. B-Dubs. That's what it was, B-Dubs. Mm-hmm. I was like, this is hitting me like a ton of bricks right now, and it was one beer.
Of course, we had to wait an hour for our food.
We won't get started on that. We could do a whole podcast on that one. So the next one is from, who's that guy's name? You said it's Big Shady 55, but you know.
Mitch. Josh Mitchell.
Got you. And it says, does Nate feel like he has long-term head injury issues from football?
Huh. I don't know if it's necessarily from football. But, like, 2 years ago when I got hit in the face by that piece of metal, and it could be because I've had multiple concussions.
Are you talking about when Felicia's husband, like, accidentally hit you in the face with the metal?
Yeah, I mean, it was just as much my fault as his on that deal, because, like, we had that bracket down, loaded with the spring loaded, and he bumped it, and, like, I was holding on to the other end, and bink, right in the nose and face. Ended up getting 8 stitches in the, like... above my lip, inside my mouth, and 4 stitches in my lip, and then I broke my nose. Had to have surgery on my nose. Is it displaced?
Did you get like work comp for that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
They paid for all of it. But yeah, I think I did get kind of a concussion then from whiplash, because I honestly noticed kind of a temperament change after that for me. I noticed in high school, like when I would get concussions, I would just snap and get pissed. And after that, I noticed that I was that way. Of course, I was also drinking a lot, too, at the time. So that could have been part of it. But I've noticed that I was doing that and really had to draw back and, like, look at myself and say, like, hey, why is this happening? And that's something I've thought a lot about over the last couple years. And really the last couple months, it's something I'm like, maybe there was a concussion there. Because, I mean, things did kind of change after that. And so I would say that there are some underlying issues, and I think later on there's going to be even more issues. But that can come down to, like, me not taking responsibility when I was in college and high school and saying, hey, I just got my bell rung, I need to sit out for a play and figure this out,
Because I've heard that, like, like, when you get a concussion, it's kind of, like, progressively easier to get one, and then, like, you can get like more damage the more of them you get, right?
Mm-hmm. I mean, one of my best friends, Duncan, he had one, played with it, and ended up with bleeding on his brain in high school, and it ended his football career. So it is a serious thing, you know, like he was in the hospital for quite a while, and then like sitting at home in a chair for quite a while, and he got lucky, you know, it wasn't worse. I got lucky that my head injuries are worse, you know, but like I'm not gonna.
Well, but how do you truly know, right?
Yeah, I'm not gonna say that like the lessons and like the work ethic and the friendships and relationships I developed through football are worth way more than any side effects I have up to this point, in my opinion. Just because like I can go to almost any state, you know, and I've got friends that are close, and just the life lessons I learned from Sterling and Nickerson, and yeah, I wouldn't give it up. I wouldn't go back and change any of it.
All right. So the next one is from my buddy Mike Miles, and he says, "Would you want your son or daughter to get into law enforcement?" You know, I don't know if you want to answer this, but you know, my youngest son, he says that he kind of mentions it from time to time, and I tell him, you know, son, you should like find something else to do. Because my dad initially, when I told him I was going to do it, he's like, "The hell you are," and here I am. So you know, I just kind of want them to be who they want to be, and I just want to support that. There might be some things that I, you know, have some reservations, and we'll have a conversation, but I won't necessarily like talk them out of it. I'd kind of want it to be their choice, unless of course they're like, you know, I want to go smoke crack for a living. You know, I might be dead set against that, but you know, really don't care. I have some reservations because I'm curious what the law enforcement environment will look like when they get old enough to be able to do it, because it's changed a lot just in the 12 years that I've been here and done it. And I know it's going to change a lot more in the next decade, whether that's for the better or for worse. That part I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you. Like my future kids, I'm not going to push them in any direction. Like, I'm not going to push them to be a hemp farmer, construction worker, any of that stuff. I want them to be happy and do what they want to do. Excuse me.
So you're going to live over there?
No, I don't know. But like, also that being said, like I know that like I'm going to raise my kid in the right way to where they can take on those challenges that are going to happen, you know? Like, I want them to be, like, there's a lot of people that say they don't want to have kids because they want to bring them into this shitty world, and I think that is an extremely soft way to look at it. You should raise your kid to be the change in the world.
Yeah.
To make the difference.
I agree.
To be a leader, and not have that kid because, in my opinion, you're just being extremely soft.
Well, could you imagine if Einstein's parents had that same thought process, or Nikola Tesla, or Stephen Hawking, and of course I'm just throwing physicists out here. There've been, or Jocko's, or Andy's, or Ryan Mickler's, or any of those parents of like just. And I named a bunch of men there. There's also really great, successful women too, and so
like Hillary Clinton.
Okay. Well, I mean, honestly, because it's like it's one of those things where, I was watching a documentary one time about the attempted assassination of Hitler. Remember when he had the bomb planted and it failed? Well, they kind of got to looking at it, with hindsight of. Even though he killed millions of Jews, he made a lot of really bad errors. He got into drugs. He made a lot of tactical errors. He made a lot of bad calls.
Was it cocaine?
He was on all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
like all kinds of stuff. And so he's on all those that were impairing his judgment. So there's a lot there, because they were saying, like, had it been someone else that was maybe more of a competent leader, that we might have lost the war and we might be under a completely different thing. So to have that mindset, and again, if that's your choice, like, you live your life, boo-boo, you know, and this isn't me and Nate saying like you got to live life the way we tell you.
No, that's the way I'm going to raise my kids, and that's
I mean, it's just one of them things of can you imagine if all of those like super successful people, and not only that, but like imagine like, even though your kid may not make this huge change this huge thing and be amazingly popular, like say Albert Einstein or whatever. Just imagine some of the people that like mentored Albert Einstein that you never heard about.
Mm-hmm.
Like those people helped foster him into the amazing person he is, and that could be your kiddo that helped foster someone into something amazing.
Or Andy talks about that girl that he ran into
at
in
the supermarket.
grocery store that like he was all down and about him, like he got stabbed in the face, his face was all fucked up, and like he used it as a poor me story basically, and then like he's going through the grocery store and runs into this lady who had like all the skin burnt off her face basically, and basically said like, live your life like it doesn't matter, don't give a shit what other people think. And it changed his outlook on things. He's like, if she can have a good outlook on life looking like that, like I'll be okay. And just people like that, I'm not saying everybody has to have kids, because we probably don't need everybody to have kids, honestly.
Which brings us right into the Georgia Guidestones.
Fair enough. It's a good transition here.
Yeah, I was like, I'm gonna jump on that one. So, Ted Carter.
We're gonna go down a rabbit hole now.
Oh boy. I just imagine Ted Carter listening to this right now, and he's got the biggest shit-eating grin on his face. I just know that guy. Biggest shit-eating grin ever.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess we'll just read the whole question and then go into the points from there. So, what do you think about the state of the world right now with the forced resignation of British Prime Minister Boris Johnson, the assassination of Shinzo Abe, which was the longest standing premier of Japan, and also the leader of OPEC was found dead the same day. So what are your thoughts on Georgia Guidestones being destroyed and the revelation that they were exactly 666 miles from the UN headquarters in New York? And then what are your thoughts on CERN and them firing up their particle collider? It's atomic particle collider, but it's a large hadron collider is actually what it is. So,
what do we think about the state of the world? We'll start at the top.
Get a big breath.
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of issues going on, and this, ties in like with fuel prices. Fuel prices, OPEC basically, they control fuel prices. It ain't Biden. Sorry to say it. OPEC controls fuel prices. It's a world market. There's corruption on so many levels of government, so many levels in so many countries right now that it is just, it's hard to believe like anything that you see on the news, in my opinion. Like it's a struggle for me to really, you've got to delve article after article to really see like what's going on, and ain't nobody got time for that shit. Like you can't research every single thing that happens for hours at a time, and that's almost to the point we're getting to on some stuff. Like you can't find a reliable news source.
Well, if you take the same news story from all those different people, and you look at the titles and how they're titled, like you're gonna get, like if you have 5 different news agencies all reporting the same thing, you get 5 different titles of that news story.
Mm-hmm.
So, as far as for me, like what the state of the world is right now, I'm still hopeful, honestly. And actually Andy Frisella is one of those people that keeps me that way, knowing that there are people in the world like him and Ryan Mickler and Jocko and David Goggins and like so many others. But those are just the ones that come to mind of like, there are still men out there that are fighting the good fight. And, the worst thing that a good man can do is basically nothing, is kind of what the quote says. And so I'm hopeful, because I think that through mediums like this, like podcast, where Nate and I can, we can voice our opinions. We can say what we want to say, and there's nobody here censoring us, telling us we can't.
Might catch flack from other people outside of this, but,
yeah.
That's fine. Bring it on.
Yeah, well, I don't really care. But it's one of those things where I think people are starting to just finally get fed up with it and tired of it. I don't care what side of the coin you're on. It's like Andy says all the time. This isn't a Republican or Democrat. This isn't left or right. This is just pro-America. And if you're not pro-America, nobody's forcing you to be here. Get the fuck out.
Mm-hmm.
But I can also see the people that aren't pro-America, because it's like they look at the government system. And I'm like, but those people that are up there, I don't care what side of the coin they're on, they're not pro-America. Like, they're pro-them.
Whatever
We've
is
said that
lying in
many
their
times.
pocketbook.
Yeah. So, again, we could keep talking on that for forever. So
another thing, there's a lot of talk about like New World Order and that kind of stuff. I do feel like there is a push for like international government and this and that, which would be a disaster. In my opinion, that would be.
I think they're giving it a try with the World Health Organization. Mm-hmm. Like, they're giving that a shot with all of that stuff.
And even some of this stuff with like the war in Ukraine and Russia, I feel like that's got a little bit to do with it because Putin is completely against that. Obviously, Putin's not a great character.
Yeah, he's not going to allow people to tell him what to do.
That's it. But I mean, I don't agree with things that Putin does.
Yeah,
I would say a lot of people probably don't. But I mean, that is kind of his pushback a little bit against that because a lot of those European countries are kind of like with the UN and all that stuff, or is it NATO?
Yeah,
they're kind of coming together, and I mean that would be on like one of your biggest borders, not very far from your capital. That is a national security concern. It could be, and so there's just a lot of things happening that. It's tough to wrap your head around, honestly.
Well, and like I said on the way here, we think of the world in terms of 4 years. And the people that have been in power for 70, 80 years, they're playing the long game, mm-hmm. and they're doing whatever they can to stay in power and stay rich. That's the long game. They could give a shit who's sitting in the White House. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, if you're in Congress, you pretty much control the pulse of the nation, in my opinion, better than the president. Mm-hmm. The president 100%. Just enforces the laws that they make. And so when you know a specific law, or like Pfizer comes to you and says, hey, we have this vaccine, do me a favor, push this law through, or vice versa, when they know that this is coming down the pike. Because let's face it, the people in Congress, they knew about COVID-19 long before you and I did. Mm-hmm. So it's like, I can do some insider trading and buy some stock here, or all the ones that
sell off my shit and
buy in Zoom, mm-hmm. Like a lot of them did. So yeah. Did you say you did research on the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson? Because I didn't do any on that one.
Briefly looked it up real quick, and I mean he's the conservative prime minister, and I just read a little bit about like the way the prime minister comes, like he's not actually voted on by the people, like it's their Congress or whatever is voted on, and then whoever gets the most vote in that party becomes the prime minister for that. So he was a conservative prime minister for Britain.
Oh, okay.
And they talked about dozens of scandals and this and that, and him not handling those good. One of them was like one of his people below him was groping other men or something, and he didn't like make him resign or something like that. I mean, so there was some stuff talking about that, but like it could have been. I mean, maybe I don't know. There's just didn't do a whole lot of research.
I would say, yeah.
I'm not going to get into it too much.
The assassination of Shinzo Abe, and I'm probably butchering that somehow, but again, the longest standing premier of Japan, and so I find it interesting that at a speech he's shot in the back with a shotgun in a country that has incredible gun control laws. You must have heard that before in this podcast. In a place where there is insane gun control, a criminal still got a gun and did bad things.
It's insane.
Who'd have thought? So anyway, I'll get off that soapbox. But the thing that I find interesting is you can see some stories about how relations with North Korea kind of deteriorated with him. And North Korea is definitely very much known. They're kind of like Russia, known of any political opposition or anybody that makes them look bad or whatever, like, we're going to kill you. Mm-hmm. So I could definitely see, because it's alleged that Kim Jong-un, right? Because it was il first, right? Kim Jong-un had his own brother killed because, he was more of the Western lifestyle and all that. He was kind of like a black eye to the family because he didn't live in North Korea. He traveled the world and lived that Western lifestyle. So I could definitely see, North Korea kind of planning something like that, in my opinion. But I haven't done a significant amount of research on that. but also the leader of OPEC being found dead the same day. Like, goodness gracious, like, there's so much money there, so much money. Like, I could see anything happening there for any reason. Mm-hmm. And it's also interesting too. We talk about all of this stuff, and like I'll bring it up at the end. When I'm getting the point I'm getting ready to make. So I could see one of a million reasons of that OPEC thing happening, but somebody wanting to get power there, I could definitely see that. But
yeah,
I again haven't researched that. So back to the Georgia Guidestones. So those of you that don't know what the Georgia Guidestones are,
did you watch the video of it?
Of the blowing up?
Mm-hmm. It was like a pretty impressive explosion.
Really?
It didn't like disintegrate the whole thing. I mean, they're 16-foot granite slabs, but it was still an impressive explosion.
Well, that was what I was wondering. Do you see like somebody actually like walk up to it and like plant the explosives? Because it is under video surveillance, like 24-hour.
It didn't show. It only showed like 10 seconds of it exploding. I'm sure they've got it of people.
Well, they're probably not wanting to release that. I could see that.
I think they said something about a white SUV pulled up to it.
Gotcha.
They still hadn't caught the people who did it.
No black SUV with dark tinted windows.
Yeah. No, they made sure to go white so it didn't look like a government vehicle.
So basically the synopsis of the Georgia Guidestones, and this is from Wikipedia. It's a granite monument that stood in Elbert County, Georgia, from 1982 to 2022. 19 feet 3 inches tall, made of 6 granite slabs weighing a total of 237,746 pounds. So it's sometimes referred to as the American Stonehenge, and it believes that the creators were going to be the upcoming social, nuclear, economic calamity, that there was going to be one. And they wanted the monument to serve as a guide for humanity afterwards, is what Wikipedia says. And it has kind of some like 10 commandments, quote unquote, on it that were kind of the guiding principles. And the thing is like nobody knows who erected it. It was R.C. Christian was the guy that came in and is like, R.C. Christian. And he wanted to be like completely anonymous. And there are some plays on the word of the R.C. Rose Coromander, something like that. It's kind of like I don't want to say, I'm making a comparison of like, they're kind of like a Freemason type organization. Mm-hmm. And so that was a play on those words, R.C. Christian. And so anyway, the inscriptions read, the first one is maintain humanity under 500 million and perpetual balance with nature. Guide reproduction wisely, improve fitness and diversity, unite humanity with a living new language, rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason, protect people and nation with fair laws and just courts, let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court, avoid petty laws and useless officials, balance personal rights and social duties, prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite, and be not a cancer on the earth, leave room for nature, And, most of those I can kind of side with. And Nate and I were just discussing a little bit on the way here of, like, all of those are good in theory, but how do we put them together in practice?
I mean, 500 million people, like, that's United States and Canada.
Yeah, so we're just going to kill everyone else. So that the Georgia Guidestones told us to nuke everyone else.
As Dwight Schrute said, we need another genocide.
Oh, gosh. So currently there is 7.753 billion people in the world. So 7.2 billion of us got to go. Billion. And if you want to know the difference between million and billion, just go to Google and type what's the difference between million and billion, and they illustrate that point in dollar bills. We're talking like pallets in a warehouse is billions of dollars stacked on top of each other.
It's insane.
And so I think that's the part that gets people to kind of go, ugh, to that whole thing. Because I think if you took that one out of there, everybody else could kind of kind of, get on board with the rest of that pretty easily. I think it's interesting how, I like the improved fitness and diversity. That makes sense. I don't have a problem with that. Unite humanity with a living new language. Like, whatever. Rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. Also makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of rooted in scripture in different ways.
There's some right-wing people out there, some conservatives that look at this because it doesn't mention God or Christianity or any of that stuff in it. That say it's a satanic symbol.
Yeah.
And that, I don't know. I mean, it seems to me like a far stretch for something like that. I feel like if it was satanic, it would be a little more, I don't know, I feel like those aren't words that would be used by someone who's worshiping Satan.
Yeah.
It just doesn't seem evil to me. Like, maybe, like the genocide, I mean, obviously, like 500 million people, that's... But they're also, these Guidestones are like for what happens after the apocalypse. So, like, I think whoever put this here says, like, after this apocalypse, 90% of our population is going to be gone anyways, so maintain it.
And then on top of the stones, there's like a slit. So like when you look straight up at noon, the sun should be coming straight through that slit. Mm-hmm. There are a couple of other holes on the other granite stones that kind of line up. Like if you look through them at like a specific time, it's supposed to line up with like Saturn or Mars or something like that. And then they're orientated in a specific way where two of the stones, where when the one side of it, like when the sun comes up, it's pointing at that. When the sun goes down, it's pointing at that. So it's just got some interesting things about it. And there's also some skepticism of that was put there by the granite industry to bring tourism. But that would be really, really expensive. Like
that's
tourist, because it was like 500 million or something like that to put it up.
Really?
Yeah. Like that's a statistic I heard. So that would be a really expensive gamble to bring tourists in,
especially not charging like for you to go and look at it.
People are going to buy granite on their way by.
Yeah.
And then also Ted asked in the revelation that they were exactly 666 miles from the UN headquarters in New York. So I was telling Nate on the way here, I think if you take any given number that you want, and draw a radius on a map, a flat map, you can find something somewhere in our world that is ironic to something being there. And I could be very wrong. I mean, that could be very intentional because let's face it, the orientation of that kind of stuff and all that was very intentional. And let's face it, those stones are in BFE. It wasn't like they were near a city center or anything like that.
Did they just show up overnight? Do you know? Does it say?
No, there wasn't like a whole construction process. Like people knew it was going down, but they didn't know who.
Okay.
But somebody rich was funding it. That's all they knew. So I don't know. I'm not 100% sold on that part. Coincidence, on purpose. I don't know. Leave it up to you. It's kind of like were they put up by Satanists or Christians? I don't know. I'll leave that up to you, kind of thing. I don't know. And also, what are my thoughts on CERN and them firing up the atomic particle collider, the Large Hadron Collider? Have you ever done any research on that? So I'm a nerd. Jesus, this is why I spent so much time in my parents' basement.
We know it's okay.
So basically, so you have like all these particles that make up like our world, right? Well, oxygen, nitrogen, all those kind of particles, they are very abundant and easy to like see and mess with and all that other kind of stuff. Well, basically what this does is you can introduce certain particles of certain masses and all that other kind of stuff into the collider, and then they use extremely powerful magnets. And I'm talking like, if I remember, it was either millions or billions of volts was what they were using to power these magnets. Mm-hmm. And so it's underground. It goes between Sweden and France, and it's in a circle. And they basically spin those particles up, in a circle. And it's a 17-mile circle. That's how big this thing is.
All underground?
All underground. It's hundreds of yards underground, too.
Sounds like a cheap deal to put in the ground.
And yeah, well, it was a $50 billion project.
That's
I
it?
think. Yeah, something like that. I mean, it was in the tens of billions. And so basically what you do is when you collide these particles together, it kind of simulates, because it's in a vacuum as well, if I remember correctly, it simulates what kind of the Big Bang was and helps us understand our originations. And like also there was a physicist with the last names Higgs, and he theorized about like, so for instance, when you like push on like when you pick this water bottle up, and I'm picking up a water bottle right now, like there's all kinds of molecules in my hands, like small little molecules, and like molecules in this bottle. And like he theorized of like what gives it mass. Like when I feel this, what gives it the mass? And it's like the particles, they all have their own mass and all that other good stuff. But there was parts of the particles' mass that didn't make sense under the math. Like if you gave all of the particles zero mass, the math worked out and was all elegant. Well, he basically theorized about kind of like a dark matter, antimatter kind of realm that particles existed in, because like, and there was like a force that they were in. So essentially he was looking for what he called the Higgs boson field. And then so they were looking for the Higgs boson particle. Long story short, CERN and the Large Hadron Collider proved that he was correct, and that there was a Higgs boson field, because they were able to do it. But they said it was literally like finding a needle in a haystack, because that's only made in like 1 in a billion collisions of these particles. So they found it and they were like, it was like a holy shit, we can't believe we just did that kind of thing.
So now what are they using that thing for?
So now what they want to do is they want to use it to prove that dark matter exists. So if you take up the mass of our solar system, because we can mathematically figure out what the mass of our solar system is, all the planets, all the gases, all the rocks, all the everything only makes up 5% of that mass. Like the sun, everything makes up 5% of our galaxy's mass. So they're thinking there's a thing called dark matter that makes up all of it, but it sucks in all light. It doesn't reflect anything or anything like that. So it's hard to detect and see. Yeah, it's hard to detect and see. And so they're basically trying to prove that dark matter exists, is what the science says. Now, it's interesting to me because I think to myself, like, there's some really cool, like, theoretical programs out there where you can play with physics, essentially. So what I mean by that is, like, this one guy had a program where he took one drop of water, like a little, just teeny tiny drop of water, and made it as hot as the sun, and then put it on Earth. Earth vaporized. Like, it was gone from one drop of water that was the heat of the sun. Mm-hmm. And so, based on that and my extremely rudimentary understanding of physics, and I don't know these things, and somebody else can probably comment, and if I'm a moron, please comment in the comments here. But it's interesting of when you're playing with particles, trying to simulate the Big Bang that literally made what we are. Could we not have the reverse of it could literally unmake us? I don't know that. And I know that stuff's done in kind of a controlled environment, and the particles are very microscopic. I mean, like teeny tiny. We're talking like on the literal atomic level. Mm-hmm. And so, but they also will collide particles together, and they'll come up with new novel particles. Like when you see the periodic table of elements, you know how there's that like disconnected portion down at the bottom that has things like Rutherfordium in it and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Well, those are so like they exist for like nanoseconds. Like they're not things that you could put on the table and look at, mm-hmm. but they are elements. They're things that have been created. Because the ones at the bottom are like the man-made particles. Yeah. So they're adding like particles to that list of things they've made up. And they're like very novel things. Like they exist for fractions upon fractions upon fractions upon fractions of a second. But they have these huge things that can like detect what they are. So I don't know, because I kind of know Ted's mindset on all of this stuff, but I don't know why he was asking about the Large Hadron Collider. You know, looking back at the physics of like we're playing with the Big Bang, of like that could be interesting. But I guess if it is, like we're all just vaporize and be dead, and we won't even know. We'll just be what
Dust in the wind.
Yeah, we'll just be what Carl Sagan termed as stardust, because we're all made up of stardust. So, yeah. So there was that long segue down that one.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you.
Oh shit! Put me on the spot. Let's go.
No, I just wanted to ask, like, how was the thing at South Bend Industrial Hemp this weekend?
Oh, I actually wanted to talk about that anyways.
Well, good thing I'm here.
Yeah, because I forgot. It was an awesome deal. Melissa and those guys put out a really awesome open house every year. It's normally the second weekend in July, and they invited High Point Farms to come out and set up a booth, and just come out and educate people on CBD and talk and network, and which was awesome. There was over 100 people that came out, I think, and they had anything from, there was 3 different builders there that are building with hempcrete. There was some other, the equipment. The people she buys her equipment for her research firm, her research company, like the research combine and planner. They were there talking about that equipment, and there's some other, the Tipsy Farmer. They're a mobile bar that travels to little events like that.
That's pretty badass.
That's where I spent my most of my money.
This is why Nate can drink more beer than Nick, because Nate drinks like every other day. Nick does not.
It's a profession. But yeah, it was really cool. And then, I handed out all my business cards and gained a lot of good contacts and stuff. You know, it's always cool going over there and talking with Aaron and Richie and Melissa, and they're good friends of ours. So, and then on Saturday morning, they had a workshop where you could go out, and they taught you how to frame and then build a hempcrete wall, which is very interesting to me because obviously I'm in the construction world, and I've looked into this stuff a little bit. I know it can be a building material of the future. Right now, it's getting there cost-effective wise, but it's still more of a, like, if you got big money and you think this is cool, you can build that house. You know, it's not quite to the point of I can go build my house out of it. But essentially what they do is, like, we framed up a 2x4 wall with a window in it. And then, like, for hempcrete, it's the hemp hurd, which is the core of the plant, which they process, South Bend does. And then you add lime binder to it. And then you mix it with water, and that's your hempcrete. And they say 10-inch minimum on your wall is what you want. So they take that 2x4 wall, and they basically just space it out and put the forms on. And then you fill that, and you pack that up. Whoa, I think we had maybe 2-foot forms. So you pack 2 foot in, then you move your forms up. And then you keep packing in more hempcrete, and you just work your way up the wall and up the roof. And it's, so like typically you would have like 7 layers on your wall. You know, you're going to have your siding, your vapor guard, your OSB, then your 2x4s, then your insulation, then your, I guess don't really count the 2x4s, you have them. Then you're going to have sheetrock and then paint. Whereas with hempcrete, you've got, it'd be plaster, hempcrete, 2x4, and plaster. So you're cutting a lot of costs out and a lot of waste, because you have a lot of waste OSB and a lot of waste siding at a new build job site, which it sucks. You know, like, what do you do with this stuff? Like, you got a bunch of 8-inch cutoffs, 10-inch cutoffs. Like,
you make platforms to train strongman with your, put your heels and toes on.
I mean, I take some of it, but we've got, dude, there's a pile sitting behind that house that is just, it's stupid.
The one by the school?
Mm-hmm. I just scrap 2x and siding and OSB and like the cutouts for the windows and all that stuff. You know, it's like that we waste a lot of product, and I mean that's every build site. You know, with hempcrete you don't have any of that waste, and I mean that's your insulation too, and it's breathable, so it's clean, it's healthy.
Didn't you say it was like carbon neutral because it'll actually pull some of that stuff out
over time?
Carbon negative, you mean?
Yep, it's a carbon negative home over time, and they're some of the most efficient homes you can build. Like, even because a lot of times you do, like, you go all the way up the ceiling like in your trusses with your hempcrete. And you don't have to do that, but I mean, you might as well.
Yeah, why not? If you got the money that you're investing anyway, I guess.
Eventually, they're trying to make it's not structural. Hempcrete isn't yet. There's some companies that are working on making blocks to make them structural, which will be really cool, you know. And they some of them kind of look like Legos. Some of the examples they got out now, just build your house with these hempcrete blocks that are like Legos. But it was really cool to see that process, and it makes me want to build a podcast studio or something out of hempcrete one of these days.
You could build a new table out of hempcrete.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is like for rentals and stuff, like those homes would be so efficient. You're not gonna have jackass college students punching holes in your walls. That's for sure.
That's because they're going to be suing you to get their medical bills paid.
To fix all their knuckles. Yeah. Well, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Can't say I've never punched a hole in a drywall, but
yeah, I've done that many times. There's holes in my house right now from that.
So it was just a really cool experience seeing all that stuff. And then like at the end of that workshop, we went and toured their processing facility, and just the year difference that I've seen from last year to this year is just, I mean, it's the same equipment stuff, but just how much more efficient they become. You know, they went from doing like 2 or 3 bales would keep them busy for a week. You know, now it's like they're getting through like 4 or 5 bales a day, I think, something like that. You know, so their efficiencies have gone up a ton. And he said they could run 24/7 and not keep up with the amount of herd they need right now.
Well, she was saying that even in the podcast, where they were getting people that wanted them to commit to contracts that they couldn't honor that commitment. So there was actually more of a demand than they were able to keep up with.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is
that's a good problem to have if you think about it.
They just don't have the farmers growing it. There's just not I mean, they've got probably 15 farmers or so growing it, and which is good. But I mean, there needs to be 100 farmers that are growing it, and there needs to be 5 more South Bend Industrial Hemps in Kansas, you know, because that's one of the big things they're fighting is logistics. You know, how do you ship those bales? Round bales don't ship very well, and so it's a pain. It's a pain in the ass to haul round bales from Nebraska down to Great Bend or from even Hutch. I mean, that's not bad. An hour isn't too bad. You can get most of your bales hauled in a day. But there's just, I mean, it's growing pains, and it's cool to see how they're working through it, and they're doing good work over there.
Well, it's interesting to see how like diverse the plant is. I mean, you guys are using it for a completely different purpose than what they're using it for.
Oh, they've got piles and piles and piles of fiber sitting over there right now. Just because, like, they've had some textile people reach out, and they want freaking like 100 tons a month. It's like, we don't even have 100 tons, and we've been operating for a year. You know, like, I mean, those aren't exact numbers by any means, but it's like they can't even meet the demand that people want. There was someone that's they were saying, like overseas, maybe Taiwan or something, that wanted a sample. And they said, we want a 50,000 pound sample shipped to Taiwan. It's like, what? Like, we can send you a 50-pound sample, not 50,000 pounds. Like, that's, I mean, that just growing pain. I mean, eventually they're going to get to a point where they can send a 50,000 pound sample, you know? I don't know what, yeah, that's interesting. I mean, that's a lot of labor and material. But it's really cool seeing that process and seeing them grow and their mindset on stuff. And look up to those guys over there. That's for sure.
Cool. So we got another question. Actually, Heather submitted several questions, so we'll just go through those. So why don't you do my podcast idea, listener's choice? So you want to let her choose what we're going to do on a podcast?
No, this isn't an MTV show. Come on, Heather. We're not in the 90s anymore.
Welcome to High Point Farms Cribs. All right. You ready to get us in trouble, or you want to skip that one?
No, we're going to get in trouble. So,
okay.
The Wellness Center posted rules.
I thought you said we're going to skip it.
She wants to know our response to them. I don't know, man.
You got people listening in like freaking Russia that don't know what the rules are.
Yeah, so the rules they posted is no shoes, no shirt, no service, and then
Like
it says
no midriffs.
yeah, that's what it says in bottom in parentheses. It says no midriffs, no torso showing, basically. So there's girls that were wearing like sports bras, and crop tops and this and that, and obviously someone complained about it. Like I guess if that's your opinion about things, that's fine. Just move on. Look the other direction. That's the way I look at it. But I mean, they're going to push these rules on people that are, I would say, a majority of your people probably don't care that are in the wellness center. So you're going to put these rules into effect that make two people happy. Which I guess it's your business. Run it the way you want to run it. But I mean,
that was going to be my answer. Is we've spent time on this podcast, and I've spent time on this podcast saying through COVID-19 of that should have been left to the businesses. If the business wanted you to wear a mask, if the business wanted you to be vaccinated, if the business wanted you to social distance, if the business wanted you to curbside pickup, then you need to honor that. That business needs to make that decision, and you need to honor that. And I think that's the same thing with the wellness center and their rules. They're a private business. That's what they chose, and that's what I'm going to honor.
Are they really private though?
Well, I mean, it's run by the rec commission, so I mean,
Yeah.
you're getting, but you get what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Is and not to mention we are astoundingly lucky.
Yeah,
to
I mean,
have
it
the
is
wellness
a really nice
center that we have, and so,
but I mean,
even if it wasn't, I still feel the same way.
Like if they're going to start expecting more out of us as customers, like I'm going to start expecting more out of the wellness center. Like I don't think the mirrors have been cleaned for like 2 years.
Well, they got cleaned at. I know for a fact they got cleaned at Seth's contest.
Yeah,
because I helped with that.
They're gross right now.
They are.
And
I've got the pictures on my phone of selfies to prove it.
And
you can see it.
The bathroom is disgusting,
dude. The men's bathroom. Of course, I haven't been in the women's. I still live in a pre-Obama world where I go to my own bathroom, but that bathroom is awful. It's almost like, and I know that's not the wellness center's job. Like that's the janitorial staff of the school, because that's like who maintains all that. Mm-hmm. But it is an afterthought. Like I get like I'm a dude and like I've been in locker rooms before and I've smelled nasty stuff and all that. It
smells like you walk into a park bathroom in the middle of town.
Amen.
It is
I would
disgusting.
Agree with that.
And it's in the middle of a nice school, it you walk into it and you get the park bathroom vibes. Like, I don't want to sit on this toilet seat.
Yeah. Well, and also people that are coming to the gym to like visit or like to shower or whatever. Like, I feel like you're gonna feel like you were dirtier when you came out of the bathroom than when you went in.
I don't think the hot water's worked in there for like 2 months, honestly.
I've let that shit run to like just see, and I don't ever get hot water.
I don't know how one of my coworkers does it. He lifts and takes a shower in the morning before he comes to work, and he's been taking cold showers for the past 2 months.
Well, those are good for you. So. Problem solved. So, what is your most unique bucket list item?
Are we talking like a vacation? Are we talking like
something you want to accomplish before you die? The most unique thing you want to accomplish before you die?
I mean, this goes back. I want to build a hempcrete home for myself. A mansion. Just kidding. But, I mean, I want to build a nice hempcrete home that like I live in for 30 plus years, That's up there. I don't know, I want to travel a lot. Don't really have a lot of specific locations, but I think like as the business grows, I think we're going to start traveling more and doing booths out of state and that kind of stuff, and start seeing a little bit that way too. I think we can make booths out of state at bigger shows worth our time, and I think probably not this year, but maybe next year we're going to start pushing that. So we'll see what happens there. It'll be fun.
Well, for me, I'd like to be rich enough at some point to pay off people's bills. And I'm not talking just like your city bill. I'm talking like mortgage bills. Like that's something that I'd want to do. I know that like my mortgage is a lot of money to me. I mean, it's manageable. I'm not to the point where I can't like pay my bills. But I know that having that extra $700 a month in my pocket would be useful. And not to say that when you pay off everybody's bills, they're all going to be responsible and make good choices after that. But it's just something that's been on my mind for a long time. Is if I ever did become rich or became rich, I would like to pay people's bills. That's like a bucket list thing that I'd like to do someday. And even if that means that, when I retire and I get like a lump sum payment that I can help somebody pay off a bill, even if it's like quote unquote small, like that's kind of like bucket list items that I want to do. I want to be able to like help people like that.
I can understand that.
So, because other things that I want to do on my bucket list aren't unique, like go to Italy, eat some like OG Italian pasta, something like that. That's not really unique.
Mm-hmm. So I want to have multiple High Point Farm stores across the state, maybe even the country.
And then all, your kids running it all?
Maybe, if I have kids. Who knows?
And then Heather's last question. What's one thing that you've accomplished lately that you're proud of? For me, it would be like just managing me and my emotions and then working through the struggles that we've had with Eli and just continuing to be the best man and cop and dad that I can be. I'm actually pretty proud of that. I still, just like Andy says, and I know we talk about him a lot, but we both like him, is just like Andy, I wake up every day and I look in the mirror and I see a guy that I'm like, okay, you're doing okay. You're doing okay, but you can do better. And that's me every day. But I'm proud of where I've come or where I'm at now from where I've come. That's something I'm pretty proud of right now.
Yeah. I actually had someone call me a narcissist the other day, and it really opened my eyes up. I was like, because like I'm pretty like conscious about what other people think about me. I probably shouldn't be as much, but that got under my skin a little bit. But then I got to thinking about it, and like in context and stuff, the way we were talking about it, I could see where I would come off that way to him. But then like I think about that a little bit more, and I look at like the career I've developed and the business I'm helping build and just the things that we're doing with the podcast and like the relationships I'm building. And I was like, it like one person's opinion does not matter on that, like we've had a lot of progress with the store, like one thing I'm really proud of is this house we're building and the crew of guys that I've got and how fun that's been and how efficient we've been building that house compared to previous ones, like it's gone up in a hurry. It's a completely new design. We're taking these blueprints and basically retrofitting them. They were made in 1997, so we're retrofitting them to the way they want. They paid $1,500 for these prints, whereas if you do a custom home print, it's like $15,000. So we're saving a lot of money that way. There's a little more headache for us, but like just the way this house build has gone, and I feel like I'm starting to come into my own in the construction industry and this and that, and it's things are fun right now. So I'm having fun and I'm proud of that. So
cool.
Long story short.
Well, that pretty well wraps up all the questions, man. Right on time. Anything else you want to say? Any final thoughts or anything like that?
Nope. Just go out and win the day every day.
Diamonds are made under pressure, baby.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And another thing, without getting too deep into things, you've heard me talk about the Go Giver and investing in people. I kind of had I got a letter in the mail that had some stuff, a thing attached to it that helped me. And so I just was really humbled by that. And so I just want to like encourage people to go out there and continue investing. You're going to get walked on. You're going to get taken advantage of. It's going to happen. But just keep investing in people in your community. And like we were talking about, like be the change that you want to see for the world. I know it can get disconcerting. I know that you don't feel like you're making a difference sometimes, but you are. Even if it's one person at a time, you are. So with that being said, thanks everybody for listening. Again, we're truly humbled that you choose to spend time with us and you choose to be here with us. And we really appreciate you listening. We haven't had any real ratings yet that I've seen. If you could just drop a rating, that really helps with the algorithm. I mean, even if you just leave us a 5-star and like a great podcast or whatever, We'd really appreciate that. Also, we have a YouTube page. If you check out the description in this podcast, you'll see the YouTube page. Check us out on Instagram at The Higher Points, on Facebook, The Higher Points Podcast, and at our website, www.thehigherpoints.com. And we really appreciate your time. We'll catch up with you guys next time.
See you guys.